everyone, it's Mary Ellen, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things related to the storytelling industry. If you don't already know me, I write nonfiction under my real name, Mary Ellen Quigley, and romance under my pen name, M.E. Laverne. And you can tell by today's title that I'm going to do a tag today, and I have not done a tag in a while, so I'm super excited about it. I had a totally different video idea when I logged in here this morning to look at my YouTube stuff, but I saw that Emma Bennet posted her version of this, and I was like, you know what? I haven't done a tag in a while. I love doing tags. So let's change it up and let's do it. So I'm going to link Emma's channel below in case you're not already following her, which if you are not, why are you not? Also, she has links to other people that she's tagged to hopefully do this one down the road and the original video where she found the idea. So if you're interested in doing this, I tag anybody who wants to do it because I think these are fun and I think it's a really fun way to learn more about each other as people and not just as writers, readers, whatever, on a screen, talking head people. It's nice to get to know us as actual people with interests outside of writing. So hopefully you'll do this and I'll get to learn more about you. This is the Writers Not Writing tag. And this is just a way for us to get to know each other when we're not writing. And question number 1 is, do you have a day job? And yes, I do. I am a revenue manager for a hotel management company during the day. So if you're like most people, you have no idea what a revenue manager is, because I'm finding that's the case. Most people are like, I don't even know what that does. Well, basically, to sum it up in the easiest terms possible, I determine how much the hotel sells rooms for so that I can generate the most money possible for the hotel. That sounds really simple when I say it that way, but there's a lot of moving parts. You have to figure out discounts, groups, corporate rates, 1 bedrooms versus 2 bedrooms versus the season, a Saturday where there's a Taylor Swift concert and the day after Christmas, probably not going to have the same rate. There's a lot of moving pieces to it. And also most revenue managers, unless they're at like a really big property, like 1,000-room JW or something like that, they typically have more than 1 property. So right now I don't have as many as I've had in past companies, but to put it this way, I had a company I worked for at one point where I had 19 hotels. And so you're having to go through and look at all of these rates all the time because everyone's constantly changing their rates, and then do financial forecasting and all of that for 19 hotels. So depending on how many hotels you have and the size of your hotels and how much group and how much business and where they're located, it can be a really, really busy job, or it can be, a comfortable, not so busy job. It just depends on your hotel and your market. But I've been doing it for 14 years and I love it. So there you go. Question number 2 is, are you a reader? And of course I am. And if you've been around my channel for a while, you know that I love to read and I have been making reading a priority in 2025. I mostly read romance. I'm trying to branch outside of romance, but romance is where my true love is, and that's where I tend to spend most of my reading time. But yes, I was a reader long before I ever became a writer. Question 3 is, what are your other hobbies? Well, outside of writing, and I'm talking not only writing books, but like, doing the podcast and all that stuff. My other hobbies are that I really love doing arts and crafts, like crafty stuff. I've gotten into diamond painting, which is kind of like color by number, but with little diamonds. I know how to do needlepoint and cross stitch. I know how to crochet. I really want to learn how to sew. So I would love to take a sewing class and maybe get a sewing machine, because I've always wanted to learn how to like sew clothing or sew even stupid stuff like sew the curtains. Like, you know what I mean? Just make my own curtains or whatever. I would love to just learn how to sew. So that's something I would love to do. But I love arts and crafts. I also love gardening, but I'll be real with you guys. I had a bad experience with gardening last summer. So I may forego the garden and just plant flowers this year, because I ended up with like beetles and aphids and all kinds of stuff, and ended up with very little produce, but months and months of work for very little produce. So although I love gardening, I may take a break from it this year because last year was such a disaster. Question 4 is, tea or coffee? I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really like tea. I like tea if it's Southern sweet tea with ice cubes in it, like the sugary stuff that tastes like you're drinking syrup instead of drinking tea. But otherwise, I don't really like tea. So I'm definitely more of a coffee girl, but even with coffee, I prefer iced coffee. Now I will drink hot coffee, but I prefer iced because I'm not a huge fan of hot drinks. So if I have to choose between the two, I'm going to go with coffee, but I like sugary, sweet, cold coffee. So coffee, but really kind of neither, if that makes sense. Question 5 is, what are you passionate about? I think anyone who's been around my channel for more than 10 minutes knows I'm passionate about storytelling. And when I say storytelling, I'm not just talking about writing books. I'm talking about reading books. I'm talking about, sharing stories orally. That's why I love doing podcasts with people. And I love doing little short, TikToks and reels. My sister and I have started incorporating those into our podcast. I love hearing people's experiences, whether those be fake experiences, they be fictional stories, or whether they be real experiences. That's probably what I'm most passionate about. But outside of like the writing and reading world and just, storytelling in general, I'm also just really passionate about my family. I love my family. I hope that most people love their family, but I love spending time with them. I'm really into creating experiences. Like I always tell people, like, for Christmas or for my birthday, I don't want a present. Take me out and do something with me, because creating those memories and creating those experiences are so important, especially since I've lost both of my parents. Like, yeah, I got some awesome gifts from my parents, but what I remember about them is the time we spent together. So I'm passionate about spending time with my family as much as possible. That's what really makes me the most happy in life. Question 6 is, do you have any pets? I do. I've got Rudy the Wonder Dog. Rudy is my first ever dog as an adult. I had a childhood dog growing up, and my whole life I wanted to get a dog, but I've been renting. I was moving around for work. It was just never the right time to have a dog. Also because I promised myself that I would have a house with a yard before I got a dog. And so that happened. I got my house with a big yard, and then Dad and I ended up getting Rudy, and he is 3 years old now. He's an 88-pound lab mix, so he's like ginormous. But I absolutely love him, and he's spoiled rotten. I'm contemplating getting a second dog, but I feel like that's going to be expensive when I go to travel, so I don't think I'm going to do that. I may not. Question 7, what was your dream job as a child? So my dream job was to be an elementary school teacher, and I actually achieved that job. I went to college, got my teaching license, and I ended up teaching 3rd grade for a while. I taught kindergarten for a while. I'll be real, I hated it. I hated teaching. I wanted to do it so badly until I got into it, and I was like, So in my late 20s, I did a career shift, and I accidentally ended up in hospitality because I was so miserable, and we moved downstate when my mom got sick and went into a nursing home. She had a stroke, and I needed a job. It was the middle of a school year. There was no one hiring, so I just took a job, and it was a friend who was like, hey, I work at a hotel. They're always hiring. I got a job working in the front office, and I fell in love with it, and I never left. And here I am 14 years later, and I'm now a revenue manager working for a corporate office. And I was telling everybody, like, I just kind of fell into hotels. I definitely did not go to school for this, and it was not my first choice. But I'm glad it happened because I love it. But yeah, being an elementary school teacher was not for me. Question 8, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? You're going to laugh because this is so stereotypical, but I always tell everybody Florida. And look, I know everybody wants to go to Florida. I don't even necessarily know it's the state itself. It's the weather. I think I just want to go someplace warm, but also the hurricanes kind of freak me out. So I say Florida, but I don't know that I actually want to go to Florida because I don't want to deal with hurricanes. But I love Indiana. This is where I grew up, but the older I get, the more I hate the weather. Like, I'm tired of snow. I'm tired of it being cold. The gloominess that happens in like December, January, or February. I am my most happiest when it's warm and sunny. And so I think I'd like to go someplace as I get older. I think I want to go someplace where it's warmer and it's more sunny. So I don't know where that is or what that looks like, but I need more sunshine in my life. So I'm going to say Florida, but really just someplace warm and sunny. Question 9, do you speak any foreign languages? Yes, kind of. I do speak French, and I'm actually relearning French. So I took French all through middle school, high school, and college. And by the time I graduated from college, I was pretty fluent in French. I mean, I wasn't like native level fluent, but I could have conversation. I could turn on a French TV show. I could watch an interview with somebody in French and understand what they were talking about. Like, I was able to, I actually, at one point, because it was part of the college class, we would read books, like chapter books in French, and I could understand it. But then I just didn't speak it for like, I've been out of college now for 20 years. I just didn't speak it. So I'm actually recently going back on like Duolingo and some of those apps that you have on your phone and trying to relearn. The funny thing is like, it's coming back really quickly. Like, I'm flying through the lessons because I feel like it's just kind of unlocking the parts of my brain that I guess I wasn't tapping into before. So it's very easily coming back. But it is one of those things that if you're not using it, you lose it. So I would like to relearn the French and try to keep it up. So I don't know what that looks like, but kind of French. But other than that, that's French and English is all I got. And the last question, question 10, is what music would we find in your collection? I listen to a little bit of everything, which I realize is kind of a non-answer, but it is true. So I laugh and tell people that I was born in the wrong generation because a lot of my favorite music growing up was actually 80s bands. I loved U2, In Excess, Metallica, like any of those big 80s bands I was really, really into, all the way up into like the 90s and early 2000s, because U2's been around like forever. So I loved them. And then when I got into high school and college, I listened to a lot of what was popular. So a lot of that late 90s, early 2000s music. When I'm in a nostalgic mood, I'll turn on like the iHeartRadio version of, 2000s and listen to that or whatever. I listen to Christian music, contemporary Christian, because I go to a more modernized church. So I love like For King and Country. I got to see them in concert a couple times. I love them. I listened to a little bit of everything. Probably the most recent discovery I made was Tate McRae. Don't know if you guys, I'm pretty sure most of you heard of her. If you have not, she kind of reminds me of a modern day version of Britney Spears in the sense that she has these very like dancey songs and she does a lot of dancing on stage. So she kind of reminds me of like young Britney Spears before life kicked her in the butt. So hopefully Tate McRae has a better outcome than Britney did, but I'm really liking her music lately. I am a Swiftie. I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm a Swiftie. So yeah, I listen to a little bit of everything. The only thing I'm not really a huge fan of is country. I do listen to some country. I grew up with, my mother loved country music. So I'm very familiar with 80s and 90s country because that's what my mom listened to. And so if a 90s country song comes on, I'll probably sing along to it. But really thing outside of like 90s country, it's not my favorite genre of music. I much prefer rock and like pop more so than anything else. So a little bit of everything. And that's all the questions that are on this tag. So again, if you decide to do this, let me know. I'd love to check out your version. And next week, we are going to do the Q1 2025 check-in on my goal of becoming a full-time author. So stay tuned. Much more details coming next week. Let me know how you guys are doing in the comments. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share, comment, all the things. Otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.